A single mom missed her flight to help a lost old woman, unaware she was Mafia boss's mother. The alarm was a betrayal. It screamed at 4:17 in the morning, a shrill, digital puncturing of the dark. My first thought, the one I had every morning, was 10 more minutes. My second was Evan. I swung my legs out of bed, my feet hitting the cold, warped linoleum of my bedroom floor. The air in the apartment was thin and damp, carrying the scent of our downstairs neighbor's fried onions and the faint, sour smell of the building's plumbing. I pulled on a sweatshirt, the one with the cracked logo from a college I'd never finished, and padded down the short hallway. Evan's door was open a crack. I pushed it gently, just enough to see him. He was 6, all limbs and sleep-tousled brown hair. His small body curled around a worn, plush stegosaurus. This was the only quiet moment. The only moment the grinding, relentless panic in my chest eased. He was safe. He was sleeping. The rest was just noise. In the kitchen, I flipped the switch on the coffee maker I'd bought at Goodwill. The light flickered, then held. I leaned my forehead against the cool, greasy laminate of the cabinet and counted to 10. Harper Langley, was 32 years old and a professional juggler. My first job started at 5:30. I was a waitress at the Keystone Diner, a place that ran on burnt coffee and bacon grease. I'd work the breakfast and lunch rush, smiling until my face ached, running plates of eggs and home fries and pocketing tips that smelled like smoke and syrup. I'd finish at 2, race 3 blocks to the bus stop, and take the crosstown to my second job. From 2:30 until 6, I worked in a gray, windowless cubicle doing data entry for a medical billing company. It was mind-numbing, finger-cramping work, staring at codes and numbers until my eyes burned, but it was quiet, it was steady, and it didn't require me to smile. After that, I'd take the bus back, pick up Evan from our neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, who watched him for a rate that was still too high but less than half of what a real daycare would charge. Then it was home. Dinner, usually pasta with butter or grilled cheese, homework, bath, story, bed. Then I'd sit at the kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg, and sort through the mail. The bills were a constant, rising tide. The pink eviction notice was now taped to the fridge, a daily reminder that we were one bad week away from a shelter. My ex-husband, Mark, hadn't paid child support in 8 months. His parting gift had been a mountain of credit card debt, his name mysteriously absent from the accounts, and a lingering, metallic taste of fear that still coated my tongue whenever the phone rang from an unknown number. My mother, bless her, was in a state-run nursing home 2 hours away, her mind fading, the bills for her care piling up right next to the eviction notice. I was not living. I was treading water in an ocean of other people's needs, and I was so tired. Then, last Tuesday, a miracle, an email, Kincaid and Associates, a high-end graphic design firm in New York City, wanted to interview me for an in-house project manager position. It was a ghost from another life, before Mark, before Evan, before the diner. I had a degree in art history. I had talent. I had potential. I had sent out a single desperate resume on a whim, a digital Hail Mary, and somehow they had answered. The salary they listed in the email was more than I made from both jobs combined. It meant health insurance. It meant a decent apartment in a safe building. It meant a school for Evan that had art supplies and computers, a place where he wouldn't be the kid in the worn-out shoes. It meant I could maybe finally breathe. This interview was not just an interview, it was an escape hatch. I'd spent my last $70 on a one-way flight from Philadelphia, the cheapest I could find. I'd begged Mrs. Petrov to take Evan for the day, promising her double pay I didn't have. I'd ironed my one good blouse 3 times, dry cleaned the cheap thrift store blazer, and dug out the pair of heels I hadn't worn since my last disastrous anniversary dinner with Mark, which is how I found myself power walking through the Philadelphia International Airport at 9:40 a.m., my carry-on bag digging into my shoulder, my heart hammering against my ribs, My flight 1440 to LaGuardia, was boarding in 20 minutes at gate B12. My biggest weakness, I rehearsed in my head, dodging a family with a mountain of luggage. I'm overly committed. I take ownership of my projects, and sometimes I find it hard to delegate. It sounded good. It sounded professional. I checked the board, gate B12. I was close. I picked up my pace, the cheap heels pinching my toes. That's when I saw her. She was standing near a pillar, just past the pretzel stand, perfectly still in a river of rushing people. She was elderly, maybe in her late 70s, and dressed in a way you didn't often see in the domestic terminal. She wore a dark, beautifully cut wool coat, a real silk scarf at her throat, and fine leather gloves. But her silver hair, which had clearly been professionally styled, was coming undone on one side. Her eyes, dark and intelligent, were wide with a deep, bottomless panic. She was clutching a small, expensive-looking leather handbag to her chest as if it were a life raft. A large, heavy suitcase was tipped over on the floor beside her. She looked, in a word, lost. I felt the pull, the familiar, aching tug of compassion that had derailed my life more than once. "Don't stop, Harper," the voice in my head screamed. "You cannot stop. This is Evan's future. This is your one chance. Someone else will help her. A guard, an airport employee." I tried to walk past. I really did. I put my head down, fixed my eyes on the gate sign just ahead. Then she made a sound. It was not a call for help. It was a small, involuntary whimper of despair. It stopped me dead. I closed my eyes for 1 second. I cursed, a short, sharp word under my breath. Then I turned around. "Ma'am," I said, stepping out of the flow of traffic, "are you all right?" The woman looked at me, her gaze unfocused. I don't... She looked around, at the gates, the people, the bright signs. He was supposed to be here, my driver. "Okay," I said, my voice calm, belying the frantic screaming in my chest. "Boarding in 15 minutes. Where are you supposed to be going?" I don't know," she whispered, and her eyes filled with tears. "My son. I was meeting my son. But my phone? I can't." Final boarding call for flight 1440 to LaGuardia at gate B12. The announcement hit me like a physical blow. My stomach dropped. I looked at the gate, the line of people shuffling forward, the cheerful attendant. I looked back at the woman, who was now trembling. This was it, the choice. The smart, sensible, desperate thing to do was to point her toward an information desk and run. My life, Evan's life, depended on me getting on that plane. But I saw her face. I saw the terror. I saw my own mother, lost in the fog of her illness, alone in a confusing hallway. I took a deep breath. It felt like stepping off a cliff into icy water. "Okay," I said, the word tasting like ash. "Okay, let's start over. My name is Harper. What's yours?" "Antonia," she breathed. "All right, Antonia. Let's get this suitcase of yours upright, and then we'll find a quiet place to sit and figure this out." I heard the beep boop of the gate scanner behind me. The door to the jet bridge was closing. The plane, my future, was leaving without me. I pushed the feeling down, the nausea, the despair. I pushed it all into a small, dark box and locked it. Right now, there was only this woman. I led Antonia to a small, slightly less chaotic airport cafe. I righted her suitcase, which was heavier than it looked, and rolled it beside me. I settled her into a chair, her back to the wall, and went to the counter. I bought her a chamomile tea and a blueberry muffin with the last of my cash. Money I was counting on for the subway in New York. The irony was so bitter I almost laughed. "Thank you, dear," she said, her hands shaking as she took the cup. "Of course." I sat opposite her. "Now, your phone, you said it's not working." She fumbled in her beautiful handbag and produced a sleek, new smartphone. The screen was black. It won't turn on." "The battery is probably dead," I said. I dug in my own bag, past my resume folder and my half-empty water bottle, and found my portable charger. My own phone was at 30%, but I plugged hers in. Let's give this a few minutes. We sat in silence. I watched the people rushing by, their faces tight with the stress of travel. Every one of them was going somewhere. I was stuck. The full weight of what I'd done began to settle on me. I'd failed. I'd failed Evan. How could I explain this? I'm sorry. Evan, we can't move to a nice apartment because Mommy stopped to help a rich old lady who looked sad. You missed your flight, Antonia said. It was not a question. I looked at her. Her eyes were clearer now. The panic receded, replaced by a sharp, assessing intelligence. Yes, I said. It was important. Yes, my throat felt tight. A uniformed TSA agent approached our table. He was young, with a buzz cut and an air of minor authority. Ma'am, you can't just sit here. This area is for ticketed passengers only. He was looking at Antonia's tipped-over suitcase, at our table cluttered with the empty cup. We're just waiting for her son. I started to say. You need to move along, he said, his voice flat. I'm going to have to ask you to proceed to the public waiting area. Antonia tensed, her hand flying to her scarf. And something inside me, worn thin from years of being pushed around, of being told what to do by men who held all the power, finally snapped. I stood up slowly. I wasn't loud. I didn't yell. I used the voice I usually reserved for when I found Mark's hidden liquor bottles. She is an elderly woman, I said, my voice low and shaking with a sudden, cold fury. She is confused, and she is lost. We are charging her phone so we can contact her family. We will move when we are ready, and not 1 second before. Do you understand me? The agent's eyes widened. He had expected me to be flustered, to apologize. He hadn't expected the lioness, as Antonia would later call me. He looked at my face, at the absolute unbending exhaustion and anger there, and he took a half step back. Okay, just make it quick, he mumbled and walked away. I sat back down, my heart pounding. I was shaking. Antonia was staring at me. A small, strange smile touched the corners of her mouth. My goodness, she said softly. The phone in her hand lit up. It was charging. I turned it on. The lock screen was a photo of a man and a little boy. The man was dark-haired, devastatingly handsome in a severe, unsmiling way. That's my son, she said, tapping the screen. Luca. Is he the one you're supposed to meet? Yes. His driver was supposed to be at baggage claim, but I got turned around. Let's call him. I navigated to her contact list. There was one entry at the top, Luca. I pressed the call button and handed her the phone. She listened for a moment, and then her face crumpled. It's just a machine. I took the phone back. Okay, let me try. He might have a different number for, I don't know, for his office. I scrolled through the contacts. There were only a few. Marco, the house, Dr. Alessi, and one labeled simply private. On a hunch, I pressed private. It rang twice. A man's voice answered, not with a hello, but with a cold, sharp yes. It stopped me for a second. The voice was like polished steel. Hello, I said, my own voice sounding thin. My name is Harper Langley. I'm here at the Philadelphia airport. I'm with a woman named Antonia Moretti. She's safe, but she's disoriented and her driver wasn't where she expected. There was a dead, terrifying silence on the other end. For a second, I thought the line had cut. Then the voice came back, each word a chip of ice. Where are you? We're in Terminal B at the Philly Fresh Cafe, just past security. Do not move, the voice commanded. A car will be there in 45 minutes, a black sedan. The driver's name will be Vinny. Do not move and do not speak to anyone else. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. The line clicked dead. I looked at Antonia. Your son, he's sending a car. It will be here in about 45 minutes. Antonia sagged in her chair, the relief so profound it seemed to take the bones out of her. Oh, thank God. Thank you, dear, thank you. We had 45 minutes to wait. The adrenaline had faded, and the despair was crashing back in, heavier this time. I had no money. I had no job. I had no way home. Really, except for the long bus ride I couldn't afford. You look like I feel... child, Antonia said gently. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. I think I just threw my entire life in the garbage for a cup of tea. Tell me, she said. And I did. With nothing left to lose, the words just spilled out of me. I told her about the interview, about Evan, his love for dinosaurs, and the way he'd asked me last week if we were poor. I told her about my ex-husband, about the restraining order that was just a piece of paper, about the way I still checked the locks 3 times before I went to bed. I told her about my mother, and the guilt, and the endless, crushing medical bills. I told her I felt like I was drowning, and I had just let go of the only life raft I'd seen in years. Antonia listened. She didn't offer platitudes. She didn't say, "It will all be okay." She just watched me, her dark eyes steady, taking it all in. When I was done, a single, hot tear rolling down my cheek, she reached across the table and put her gloved hand over mine. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "You are a good woman, Harper Langley," she said, her voice firm. "And you are a lioness. You did not throw your life away. You changed the direction." "It feels like I drove it off a cliff," I whispered, wiping my face. "No," she said, "a car is coming." Just then, a sleek, black sedan pulled up to the curb outside, in a zone clearly marked no stopping or standing. A man built like a walk-in freezer got out of the driver's side. He wore a dark suit and sunglasses, though it was cloudy. He scanned the terminal, his eyes landing on us. He nodded, once. "That's Vinny," Antonia said, gathering her purse. I helped her up and rolled her suitcase to the door. The man, Vinny, took the suitcase from me without a word, his eyes hidden behind the dark glasses. He opened the back door for Antonia. She turned to me. "This was not a mistake," she said, her voice full of conviction. "You understand me?" She pulled a small, simple card from her handbag. It was heavy, expensive cardstock. It had no name, just a 10-digit number, embossed in clean, black type. "This is my son's private line," she said, pressing it into my hand. "Someone will reach out. As thanks." I tried to give it back. "Antonia, I didn't do it for a favor." Her eyes held mine. "That, my dear, is precisely why you will get one." She got into the car. The door closed with a heavy, solid thunk. The car pulled away, disappearing into the airport traffic. I was alone. The noise of the terminal, the announcements, the smell of pretzels. It all crashed back in. I looked at the card in my hand, a 10-digit number. I looked at my phone. 3% battery. I had $4.11 to my name. I felt like the biggest fool in the world. I'd made a huge mistake. I took the slow, rattling bus back to my neighborhood. The ride took 2 hours, every minute of it. I stared out the window, my reflection a pale, defeated ghost. I'd chosen a stranger over my own son. The guilt was a cold, heavy stone in my stomach. When I got to Mrs. Petrov's, Evan ran to me, his face bright. "Did you get the job? Mommy, are we moving to the big city?" I picked him up, buried my face in his hair, and for the first time that day, I let myself cry. Hundreds of miles away, in an office that overlooked not a city, but a private, sprawling estate. Luca Moretti stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window. His mother was home, safe, sleeping off a mild sedative doctor. Alessi had given her. He, however, was not calm. He was on the phone, his voice a low, lethal hum. "Tell me again," he said. "Tell me how my mother, who is supposed to have 3 men, 3 watching her, ended up lost in the Philadelphia airport for almost 2 hours." He listened. His knuckles were white as he gripped a heavy, glass paperweight from his desk. "Fired is the least of it. Carlo, the protocol is in place for a reason. Find out who was on shift. Find out where it broke. I want a full report on my desk in 1 hour, and I want to know everything about the woman." He hung up without saying goodbye. His security chief, Marco, a man who had been with him for 20 years, stood silently in the doorway. "The woman," Marco said, holding a tablet. "Harper Langley, 32, lives in suburban Pennsylvania, 1 son, Evan, 6 years old, works 2 jobs, a diner and a data entry firm, drowning in debt. Ex-husband, Mark, has a restraining order, but he's been sniffing around. She was on her way to a job interview in New York this morning. Missed her flight to help your mother." Luca turned from the window. "Show me." Marco handed him the tablet. Luca scrolled through the files. Her credit report, her rental agreement, a blurry photo of her ex-husband, and grainy security footage from the airport. He tapped a clip. He watched the TSA agent approach his mother. He watched Harper Langley stand up. He couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. He saw the set of her jaw. He saw the way she planted herself between the agent and his mother. He tapped the screen, zooming in on her face. It was a good face, strong bones, but it was etched with a profound exhaustion, a terror she was barely holding back. And yet, she wasn't weak. "She defended her," Lucas said, his voice quiet. "She didn't know who she was. She had every reason to run to her gate, and she stood and defended her." He watched another clip. Harper at the counter, her hand shaking just slightly as she counted out the change for tea. "She paid for my mother's tea," he murmured. He scrolled to her bank statement. He saw the balance. $4.11. A strange, unfamiliar feeling moved in his chest. It wasn't pity. It was interest. "She's fascinating," he said. "Marco, I want eyes on her. Not surveillance. Protection, this ex-husband. I don't like it. Put a team on him, too. I want to know when he breathes." "Understood," Marco said. "And the job interview? The one she missed?" Luca looked at the last image, a shot of Harper walking out of the airport, her head bowed, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Cancel the interview," Luca said. "Kincaid and Associates just lost their budget for a new project manager. She's not going to work for them." He looked at her picture again, at the fight hidden beneath the weariness. "She's going to work for me." 2 days after the airport, the rejection email from Kincaid and Associates arrived. It was polite, sterile, and final. "While we were impressed with your portfolio, the position is no longer available." Just like that, the escape hatch was welded shut. That night, I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the pink eviction notice, the paper feeling heavy and toxic in my hand. We had 5 days. I was calculating how much I could get for my grandmother's locket, the only real gold I owned, when my phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. I almost let it go. It was probably another debt collector. Or worse, Mark calling from a burner. But something made me pick it up. "Hello? Is this Miss Harper Langley?" The voice was male, professional, and smooth. "This is she. My name is Robert Vescovi. I am calling on behalf of Mr. Luca Moretti. You assisted his mother, Antonia, at the airport 2 days ago." My blood went cold. I gripped the counter. Is she all right?" "She is perfectly fine, thanks to you," the voice said. "Mr. Moretti was moved by your decision to help her, especially at such personal cost. He is aware you missed an important interview as a result." A chill went down my spine. How would he know that? "Mr. Moretti would like to meet with you, Miss Langley, to thank you personally, and to discuss a potential employment opportunity. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow, say 1 o'clock? Employment? What? My heart did a stupid, hopeful flip. An opportunity? What kind? He prefers to discuss the details in person. A car will be at your address at 12:30 to bring you into the city. We have a reservation at Le Lac. I knew Le Lac. It was a name whispered in the diner, a place where a single appetizer cost more than I made in a day. This was insane. "Mr. Vescovi, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think—" "He is insistent," the voice interrupted, still polite, but with an underlying current that was not a request. "Please, Miss Langley, as a personal favor to Antonia, 1 o'clock." The line clicked dead. Suspicion and desperation are terrible dance partners. I knew, with a certainty that settled in my bones, that this was not normal. Rich people sent gift baskets, maybe a check. They did not send mysterious, insistent men to summon you to 5-star restaurants. But I also knew I had 5 days. I had Evan. I had nothing. The next day, at exactly 12:30, a black sedan, the same model that had collected Antonia, pulled up to my crumbling apartment building. It was so clean it looked wet. Vinny, the driver built like a freezer, got out and opened the back door for me. He didn't speak. He just nodded. The ride was silent. We drove out of my worn-down suburb and into the heart of Philadelphia, to a part of the city I only ever saw in magazines. Le Lac was discreet, its entrance marked only by a polished brass plaque and a heavy mahogany door. The maitre d' didn't even ask for my name. "Miss Langley, Mr. Moretti is waiting." He led me through a hushed, dark wood dining room to a private alcove. A man was standing, looking out the window at a small, walled garden. He turned as I approached. It was the man from the photo on Antonia's phone. He was tall, and the word suit didn't do justice to what he was wearing. It was dark charcoal, tailored so perfectly it seemed a part of him. His hair was black, thick, and cut with precision. He wasn't handsome in the way of movie stars. His features were too severe, his nose sharp, his jaw unforgiving, but it was his stillness that held me. He moved with an absolute terrifying economy of motion, and his eyes, they were the darkest brown I had ever seen, and they were looking at me as if he was memorizing every flaw. "Miss Langley," he said. His voice was not the steel chip voice from the phone. That, I realized, must have been private. This was his public voice, deeper, richer, with a velvet over gravel quality that slid right under my skin. "Luca Moretti, thank you for coming." He gestured to the chair, and I sat. A waiter appeared instantly, pouring water. "My mother sends her deepest regards," he began, sitting opposite me. "She was very taken with you. She called you a lioness." I felt a flush creep up my neck. She was distressed. I just did what anyone would have. His lips quirked, not quite a smile. "No," he said, "you did what you would do. Most people, I find, would have run for their gate." The waiter returned, asking about drinks. I asked for an iced tea. Luca just nodded at the waiter, who disappeared. "I was sorry to hear your interview with Kincaid fell through," he said, his eyes fixed on mine. The chill was back. "You seem to know a lot about me, Mr. Moretti." "I am a man who values information. Harper, may I call you Harper?" He didn't wait for an answer. "I know you work 2 jobs. I know you're raising a 6-year-old boy named Evan. I know you are facing an eviction. And I know you spent the last of your money to buy my mother, a perfect stranger, a cup of tea." I felt exposed, pinned to the velvet seat. My instinct was to run, to throw my water in his face and leave, but my pride, the only thing I had left, came roaring to the surface. "I don't know who you think you are," I said, my voice low and shaking. "But my life is not some file for you to read. If you called me here to offer me charity, you can save your breath. I don't want your money." I put my hands on the table, ready to stand. He watched me, his expression unreadable, for a long, tense moment. He just watched. I could hear the faint clink of silver on china from the main dining room. "Good," he said, finally. I blinked. "Good? I am not offering charity. I am offering a job, but you are right." He leaned forward just slightly. The air between us crackled. "You have fire. My mother was right about that, but I also see your exhaustion. I see the fear you're trying to hide. You are afraid, and you are tired, but you are still proud. It is a rare combination." The waiter brought our food, which we hadn't ordered, a light, delicate salad. Luca had clearly ordered for us in advance. "I am not in the graphic design business, Harper," he said, picking up his fork. "The position I have in mind is personal. I waited, my heart hammering. I own a number of properties. 1. A townhouse in Rittenhouse Square is currently empty. I use it when I'm in the city for extended business. I require someone to manage it, to keep it functional, stocked, to ensure it is a home and not just a house. I stared at him. You want me to be a housekeeper? The word felt like an insult. All that work, all that striving to end up cleaning toilets for a rich man. And a nanny, he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. I'm sorry? The townhouse has 3 bedrooms. The job requires you to live on site. The 3rd bedroom would be for your son. He would be enrolled at the Chilton Academy. It's 2 blocks away. One of the best private schools in the state. I stopped breathing. The Chilton Academy. I'd seen pictures of it. Children in neat blue uniforms, playing behind wrought iron gates. The position is nanny housekeeper, he clarified. You would be responsible for the house and for caring for Evan. Your schedule would be your own. As long as the house is in order and Evan is cared for, I am in and out. Sometimes I am there for a week. Sometimes I am gone for a month. When I am there, my needs are simple. Coffee, dark, a clean shirt. Otherwise, your time is your own. He paused, taking a sip of water. The salary, he said, is $120,000 a year. Full health and dental for you and your son. Effective immediately. I must have misheard him. I made less than a quarter of that, working 80-hour weeks. 100,000? And 20, he confirmed, his face impassive. The eviction notice on your door. That goes away. Today, my driver will take you to your apartment after lunch to pack. You can move in this evening. It was a rescue. It was a prison. It was too fast, too clean, and too much. Why? I whispered. Mr. Moretti, this is an insane amount of money for a housekeeping job? Why me? Because you did not run for your gate, he said simply. Because you stood up to a man in a uniform for my mother. Because you have pride. I do not want people in my home who are easily bought. I want people who have character. You, Harper, have character. And you are in trouble. I am offering you a solution that also benefits me. It is efficient. I looked at him, searching for the lie. He met my gaze, steady, unblinking. He was telling the truth, his truth anyway. I thought of Evan. I thought of the Chilton Academy. I thought of sleeping for 8 straight hours in a safe building with food in the refrigerator. I accept, I said. The move was a blur. Vinny drove me home. He waited outside, silent as a statue, while I packed 2 suitcases with our meager belongings. I told Mrs. Petrov a lie about a family emergency, paid her what I owed her, and held Evan's hand as we walked out of that building for the last time. The townhouse was on a street lined with trees and gas lamps. It was beautiful. 4 stories of brick and ivy. Inside, it was perfect. Polished hardwood floors, a gleaming kitchen with stainless steel appliances, furniture that was elegant, expensive, and completely impersonal. It was a show home. Your rooms are on the 3rd floor, Vinny said, setting our bags down. It was the first time I'd heard him speak. Mr. Moretti had the 2nd bedroom prepared for your son. I walked up the carpeted stairs. The 3rd floor had 2 rooms. Mine was large, with a soft gray carpet and a queen-sized bed. The other, I pushed open the door. It was a little boy's dream. The walls were painted with dinosaurs. A stegosaurus, just like Evan's, was on the comforter. A shelf was filled with new books and art supplies. How did he know? I whispered. Evan, beside me, just gasped, his eyes wide, and ran to the bed. Mr. Moretti is thorough, Vinny said from the hallway. A car will pick you and the boy up at 8 tomorrow morning for his enrollment at Chilton. Your first month's salary, prorated, has been wired to your bank account. I checked my phone, my bank app. The number there made me sit down on the bed. It was more money than I'd ever seen in one place. There is a security system, Vinny said, tapping a panel by the door. Mr. Moretti has the master code. You are not to give it to anyone. There are cameras on the exterior doors, but none inside the house. You and the boy are safe here. Understand?" "Yes," I said, feeling numb. "Good, Mr. Moretti will be in touch." And he left. The first few weeks were strange. Evan started at Chilton and, after a few shy days, blossomed. He came home talking about painting and music. His cheeks rosy. I learned the house. I cleaned, though it was already spotless. I bought groceries. I cooked, filling the sterile kitchen with the scent of baked bread and soup. It was a quiet, protected, lonely life. I felt the protection. I never saw Mark. I never got a single collection call. It was as if my old life had been surgically removed, but I felt the loneliness, too. I was a bird in a very beautiful cage. Luca Moretti was a ghost. He came and went, as promised. I'd wake up and find the coffee pot empty, a faint, expensive scent of cologne in the air. He left notes, stocked the bar. Red wine, a specific unpronounceable brand, or dry cleaning pickup, Thursday. When I did see him, the air crackled. He'd find me in the kitchen, and for a moment, we'd just stand there. Evan likes his school. He'd state, not ask. He loves it, thank you. The house is clean. It's my job. He would nod, his dark eyes sweeping over me, lingering for a fraction of a second too long. There was no flirtation, not really. It was something heavier, an assessment, a possession. It made my skin prickle. Then, one night, about a month in, I was making pasta. I was tired, my mind drifting back to the diner, to the weight of my old life. I reached for the pot of boiling water, forgetting the dish towel, and grabbed the hot metal handle with my bare hand. The pain was white hot, electric. I screamed, a short, sharp sound, and dropped the pot. Boiling water and pasta splashed across the floor, spattering my legs, but my palm was seared. I stumbled back, clutching my hand to my chest, tears of sheer, agonizing pain springing to my eyes. I ran it under the cold tap, but I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. The front door opened and closed. "Harper?" Luca's voice. He wasn't supposed to be here. He appeared in the kitchen doorway. He took in the scene in 1/10 of a second, the water on the floor, me trembling at the sink, my face pale with shock. His face hardened. "Let me see." He didn't wait. He crossed the kitchen, ignoring the mess, and took my wrist. He gently, firmly, pulled my hand from the water. The palm was an angry, blistering red. "A doctor," I stammered. "I'll handle it," he said, his voice a low command. "Where is the first aid kit?" Under the sink." He sat me down at the small kitchen table, his movements quick and sure. He retrieved the kit. His large hands, which I'd only seen holding a phone or a briefcase, were surprisingly gentle. He cleaned the burn with an antiseptic wipe, his touch firm but impossibly soft. I winced, and he paused. "I know," he said, his voice quiet. He applied a thick and cooling salve from a tube and then began to wrap my hand in sterile gauze. His focus was absolute. He was wrapping my hand as if it were the most important task in the world. His touch was clinical, but it was also intimate. It sent a strange, warm shiver through my shock. When he was done, he cleaned up the mess on the floor. He mopped up the water, threw out the pasta. Then he made me a cup of tea, the chamomile kind his mother liked. He placed it in front of me, his fingers brushing mine. "You're shaking," he said, his voice low. He was right. It wasn't just the pain. I'm fine," I lied. "No, you're not." He sat opposite me, his suit jacket off, his sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms lightly dusted with dark hair. He just watched me. The words came out before I could stop them. A broken whisper. "My ex-husband, Mark." Luca's eyes narrowed. He didn't move. When I did something wrong, like if I burned dinner or if I was late." I was looking at my bandaged hand, not at him. He wouldn't hit me, not at first. He would grab my wrist or my arm and just hold it, really tight until I apologized, The shame was so thick I could barely breathe. I had never told anyone that. He liked to show me how easy it would be. I finished, my voice dead. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. I finally, bravely, looked up. Luca Moretti's face was carved from stone. His eyes were not brown anymore. They were black, a flat, cold, bottomless black that terrified me more than Mark's anger ever had. He will not touch you again. Luca said, it was not a promise. It was a statement of fact, as simple and as final as gravity. Ever. He stood up, put his jacket back on. Get some rest, Harper. Put ice on that if it throbs. He left. I sat there for an hour, shaking, before I finally went upstairs to check on Evan. I couldn't sleep. The painkiller I'd taken had made me fuzzy, but the memory and Luca's reaction had my heart racing. I tossed and turned, the clean sheets feeling too cold. Around 2 a.m, I gave up. I padded downstairs, my bandaged hand aching, to get a glass of water. The kitchen was dark, but the moonlight coming through the garden window silhouetted a figure. He was standing by the glass, perfectly still, looking out. He hadn't left. He turned his head as I entered. I stopped in the doorway. "You're still here," I whispered. "I couldn't leave," he said. His voice was rough. He hadn't moved from his spot. I went to the sink, poured a glass of water with my good hand. The silence was thick, heavy, not awkward, but full. "How's the hand?" he asked. "It hurts, but it's okay, thank you. For the bandaging." "You're welcome." I stood by the counter, holding the glass. The space between us was about 10 feet, but it felt like an inch. "Why are you still here, Luca?" He turned fully to face me, looked unguarded. For the first time, he didn't look like a boss or a severe, handsome stranger. He just looked like a man, awake in the middle of the night, carrying something heavy. "He will not come here," he said. "Mark? He will not come here. He will not go to Evan's school. He will not call your phone. It has been handled." A cold dread mixed with a stunning, profound relief. What did you do?" "I made it clear," he said, "that you are protected." He moved then, one step, then another, closing the distance between us. He stopped right in front of me. He was so tall. I had to tilt my head back. He smelled like that expensive cologne. And something else. Something clean and male. "You shouldn't be afraid in your own home," he said, his voice a low murmur. He lifted his hand, the one that had so gently bandaged mine. He hesitated, his fingers hovering, before his thumb brushed, so lightly, across my cheek. It was a simple touch, but it lit a fire all the way down my spine. My body, so long braced for pain, for dismissal, for simple utility, didn't know how to react. "You're safe here," he whispered. It was the promise from before, but this time it felt different. It felt personal. I don't know why I did it. Exhaustion, gratitude, a deep, aching loneliness. I leaned into his touch, my eyes closing. I felt his other hand, warm and solid, settle on my waist. It wasn't a grab. It was a steadying. And then his mouth was on mine. It wasn't hard or demanding or angry. Like every kiss I'd known from Mark, it was hesitant. It was a question. His lips were soft, testing, asking permission. I sighed, my breath catching, and my free hand came up to rest on his chest, feeling the solid muscle, the thrum of his heart. The hesitation vanished. The kiss deepened. It was not a fire. It was a slow, magnetic pull, a deep, powerful current. He tasted like coffee and something I couldn't name. His hand at my waist tightened, pulling me flush against his body. He was all hard lines and heat, and I felt myself melt against him. Anchored for the first time in years. It was a kiss of loneliness, of quiet strength, of a darkness I didn't understand but was suddenly, desperately drawn to. It was too much. It was too good. It was too confusing. This was my boss. This was a man who scared me. This was a man who had just handled my ex-husband. I broke the kiss. Pushing lightly against his chest, I stepped back, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. My bandaged hand throbbed, my lips tingled. He just watched me, his eyes dark, his breathing as unsteady as mine. I can't, I stammered, my voice thick. I can't. I work for you. I can't. I didn't wait for him to speak. I turned and fled, running up the stairs to my room, my heart hammering against my ribs. I locked the door, something I hadn't done since I'd moved in, and leaned against it, trembling. I was confused and overwhelmed, and for the first time in so long, I felt something other than fear. And that, more than anything, terrified me. The morning after the kiss, I woke up feeling like a fool. My hand throbbed, a dull ache beneath the white gauze, but my lips, they felt branded. I had run like a terrified teenager. And now I had to face him. I went downstairs, my stomach in knots. The kitchen was empty, spotless. The coffee pot was full, but the air was still. He was gone. The relief was so sharp it almost bent me in two, and it was followed by a wave of something that felt suspiciously like disappointment. I tried to put it out of my mind. I was an employee. He was my boss, a very strange, very intense boss. That kiss had been a mistake, a lapse in judgment brought on by shock, painkillers, and a level of male attention I had not experienced in, well, ever. I tried to keep my distance. I created a new routine. I woke up before dawn, got Evan ready, and walked him the 2 blocks to Chilton. Breathing in the cold, crisp morning air, I cleaned the townhouse with a frantic, focused energy. I grocery shopped. I cooked. I was the perfect, invisible employee. Luca, for his part, seemed to be respecting the boundary I had drawn. He was gone for days at a time. The house was just mine and Evan's, but his presence was everywhere. I got a call one afternoon from my mother's nursing home, a cheerful administrator. Mrs. Langley, just calling to let you know that the outstanding balance on your mother's account has been settled in full. My blood ran cold. What? By who? I haven't made a payment. Oh, a payment was made this morning by a representative from Mr. Moretti's office. They've also arranged for a private neurology consultation for your mother. Isn't that wonderful? I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. It was not wonderful. It was a violation. He had no right to look into my family's finances. He had no right to just handle it. I was grateful, and I was furious. It was the most confusing, disempowering feeling. A few days later, a large, flat box arrived. It was for Evan. Inside was a professional-grade art set. Not the kid stuff, but real charcoal pencils, watercolor tubes, and thick, textured paper. Evan was ecstatic. The card, written in clean, black script, simply said, "For a fellow artist, L." I was being managed. My life was being curated. Luca was a ghost who was fixing my past and paving my son's future, all without ever laying a hand on me. He was respecting the line I'd drawn after the kiss, but he was drawing 100 new, invisible lines all around me, lines of obligation, of gratitude, lines of control. And then I started to notice the cars. I was not, by nature, a paranoid person, but my life with Mark had been a master class in learning to read the shadows. Mark, when he was in one of his rages, would follow me. He would sit in his car outside the diner, just watching. This was different. The cars were not Mark's beaten-up truck. They were discreet, dark sedans. The same one, a gray Lexus, was parked across the street from Chilton when I dropped Evan off. Later, I saw it again, parked half a block from the grocery store. I saw a man, not Vinny, sitting in it, reading a newspaper. My skin began to crawl. The old, familiar acid of fear started to churn in my stomach. Had Mark found me? Had my ex-husband, in his desperation, tracked me to this gilded cage? The fear was a cold hand on my heart. For 3 days, I watched. I took different routes. I went to a different park with Evan. The cars were always there, not threatening, just present. This was not Mark. This was Luca. The fury that had been simmering under the surface of my gratitude finally boiled over. This was not protection. This was a violation. It was the exact same thing Mark had done. It was a statement. You are mine. I am watching you. I waited. I waited for 2 days, pacing the house, my anger building into a cold, hard knot. I practiced the words in my head. I would not be controlled. I would not be watched. He came home on a Tuesday night. I heard the thunk of the front door, the jingle of keys on the hall table. I was waiting for him in the living room, standing in the dark. I didn't turn on a light. He stopped in the doorway, his form a tall silhouette against the hall light. Harper? Who are they? I said, my voice shaking. He didn't pretend to be confused. He was too precise for that. He stepped into the room, and the shadows clung to him. Who? The men in the cars, the gray Lexus, the black Audi, the men who are following me. Who are they? He was silent for a beat. He unbuttoned his suit jacket, his movements slow, deliberate. They are my men. Why? The word was a razor. They are for your protection. I snapped. It was the exact wrong answer. My protection? Do you think I'm stupid? You don't get to do that. You don't get to put a leash on me and call it safety. You don't get to watch me. It's not about watching you. That's what he said. I screamed the words, the sound ripping out of my throat, raw and painful. That's what Mark always said. I'm just checking on you. Harper, I just want to know where you are. It's control. Luca, it's control, and it's ownership, and I will not have it. Do you understand me? Harper, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. I was crying now, hot, angry tears. I would rather be back in my cold apartment dodging collectors than be your pet, your project. You pay my mother's bills, you buy my son toys, and you put men on my tail to make sure I'm behaving. I am done. I ran past him, up the stairs, my feet pounding on the carpeted steps. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I was leaving. I would take Evan, and we would go to a shelter. We would figure it out. We had before. I burst into my bedroom and pulled my old, battered suitcase from the top of the closet. It fell to the floor, and I dropped to my knees, fumbling with the zipper. You are not leaving. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. He was standing in the doorway, his jacket gone, his tie loosened. He wasn't angry. He was intense. A contained, lethal energy. You can't stop me, I sobbed, pulling shirts from a drawer and throwing them, uselessly, into the case. You can't keep me here. He crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't grab me. He just took the shirt from my hand, his grip firm. This is not him, he said, his voice a low growl. I am not him. It's the same thing. It is not the same thing. He grabbed my shoulders, not to shake me, but to hold me, to force me to look at him. His dark eyes were burning. Do you think this is a game? Do you think he was following you because he cared? He was a weak man who wanted to hurt you. My men are there to stop a strong man from killing you. I froze. The word hung in the air. Killing. What? What are you talking about? He let me go, his hands dropping to his sides. He looked, for the first time, tired. He raked a hand through his perfect hair, leaving it in disarray. Harper, the world I live in, he said, and he looked around the beautiful, safe room. Is not this is a bubble. The real world, my world, is not clean. He sat on the edge of my bed, a move so unexpected, so intimate, it silenced me. My mother, when she was lost, she was not just lost, she was vulnerable. She is the mother of Luca Moretti. That means she is a target for my competitors, for my enemies, people who would take her, hurt her, to get to me, to get leverage. My security failed. It was the worst failure of my life. He looked up at me, his gaze so raw it stripped the anger right out of me, leaving only a cold, stark fear. You, he he said, his voice quiet. Stepped into that. You helped her. You brought her back. And then I brought you here, into my home, into my life. He stood up, began to pace. You're not my employee. Harper. Not really. You are the woman who is living in my house, the woman who is raising her son under my roof, the woman who... I kissed. In my world. That makes you a target. That makes Evan a target. The men in the cars are not there to watch you. They are there to die for you. They are there to take a bullet that is meant for you. That is protection. Harper, that is loyalty. It is the only thing that matters. It is not control. It is necessity. I sank down onto the floor, my legs giving out. The suitcase lay open, forgotten. He was telling the truth. The pieces clicked into place, the severity, the security, the instant removal of Mark, the way he'd said, he will not touch you again. It wasn't a threat, it was a fact, enforced by what? Who are you, Luca? I whispered. He stopped pacing, and he knelt in front of me, so we were eye to eye. His hands came up, not to grab, but to cup my face. His palms were warm, slightly rough. It was the same touch he'd used on my burned hand, gentle, but absolute. I'm a man who cannot, who will not, let you or your son get hurt, he said. I brought you into this. I will keep you safe. The fight was gone. The anger had evaporated, replaced by a deep, trembling understanding. I saw the burden he carried, the weight of this protection, this loyalty. I saw the man behind the steel. I leaned forward, my forehead resting against his. We stayed like that for a long moment, just breathing. His thumbs stroked my cheeks, wiping away the last of my tears. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm scared. I know, he breathed. So am I. That was the word that broke me. Him. Scared. I lifted my head. His face was inches from mine, the scent of him, the heat of him. It was all I could feel. I had tried to run, and I had run straight into the center of the storm. Don't leave, he said, his voice a raw plea. I'm not going anywhere, I said. And then I kissed him. It was not a hesitant, questioning kiss, it was a collision. I poured all my fear, all my anger, all my bone-deep loneliness into it, and he met me, taking all of it. His arms went around me, pulling me from the floor into his lap as he sat back on his heels. I was wrapped around him, my hands in his hair, his hands sliding from my back to my waist, holding me as if he'd never let me go. It was fierce. It was desperate. He wasn't the calm, controlled boss. I wasn't the frightened, grateful employee. We were just two people, holding on in the dark. He broke the kiss, his breathing ragged. He looked at me, his eyes black with a need so profound it mirrored my own. Harper, he breathed, as if the name itself was a question. I didn't answer with words. I couldn't. I kissed him again, slower this time. This was not a fight, this was a surrender. My hand went to the buttons of his shirt, my fingers fumbling, clumsy. He stopped me, his hand covering mine. He brought my hand, the one with the faded burn, to his lips, kissing the palm. My heart stopped. He stood, lifting me as if I weighed nothing. He carried me the 2 steps to the bed and laid me down, never taking his eyes from mine. I'm not him, he said again, a vow. I know, I whispered. He undressed me slowly, purposefully. Each piece of clothing was removed with a reverence that made me tremble. He wasn't just taking off my clothes. He was removing my armor, the cheap blouse from the diner, the worn-out jeans. He studied my body, not with lust, but with memorization. His gaze traveled over my ribs, my stomach, soft from carrying Evan, my legs. He saw all of me, all my imperfections, all the places I was worn and tired, and his eyes. His eyes were full of a deep, aching tenderness. I had never felt beautiful, not once in my life, and with Mark, I had been an object, a possession to be used. With Luca, in this moment, I felt seen. He shed his own clothes, his movements economical, graceful. His body was powerful, all lean muscle and tight control, his skin warm. He came to me on the bed, his weight settling beside me. He didn't take me, he tended to me. His hands, his mouth, they learned my body. Every touch was slow, deliberate. He kissed my throat, my collarbone, the inside of my wrist. He found places that made me arch and sigh, places that had never been touched with such softness. He was building a fire, not with gasoline, but with a slow, patient, burning coal. He made me let go. He made me forget the fear, the anger, the past. There was only his hands, his mouth, his strength. When I was trembling, my breath catching in sobs, I reached for him, pulling him to me. "Please," I whispered. He came to me, his body covering mine, and it was a homecoming. It was a fierce, protective claiming, but it was also a tender, emotional merging. It was everything I had never known I was missing. It was strength. It was softness. It was a man, broken in his own way, holding a woman broken in hers. And in that moment, we were whole. Afterward, he didn't roll away. He pulled me to his side, my head on his chest, his arm like a steel band around me. I could feel his heart, steady and strong, beating under my ear. "You are mine, Harper," he whispered into my hair. This time, it didn't sound like control. It sounded like a fact. It sounded like protection. I fell asleep, truly, deeply asleep, for the first time since I'd met him. The next morning, I woke up alone. The bed was empty. The pillow next to me was cool, but his scent lingered, a mix of expensive soap and him. I felt foolish, stupid. My heart, which had felt so full, so safe, now felt hollow and exposed. I was his housekeeper, and I had just slept with him. What did that make me? I got up, my body aching in a new, pleasant way, and tried to push it down. I had a son. I had a job. I would be professional. I got Evan up, my movements automatic. We had breakfast. I walked him to school, my head down, my thoughts screaming. I kissed him goodbye at the gates and watched him run to his friends. He came home that afternoon, bursting through the door, his face bright. Mommy, look!" He was holding something, a small, green plastic toy. "Look what the man gave me!" The blood drained from my face. I felt the floor tilt. What, man? Baby, where?" "At the park. When we were playing, he was nice. He said it was a present." I grabbed the toy from his hand. It was a little green army soldier. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. "Harper?" I spun around. Luca was standing in the doorway, his briefcase in hand. He must have just come in. He looked at my face, then at the soldier in my hand, and his entire body went rigid. "Where did he get that?" His voice was lethally soft. "A man, at the park, a man gave my son a toy," I said, my voice rising to a hysterical shriek. "A stranger gave my son a toy. Luca, where were your men? Where was the protection?" He was across the room in an instant, his hands on my arms. What did he look like? I don't know. I wasn't there." I turned to my son. "Evan, honey, what did the man look like?" Evan's face crumpled, scared by my tone. He was just a man. Mommy, he had a funny hat." "Go to your room, Evan. Luca commanded, his voice calm but terrifying. "Now. It's all right." Evan ran. The moment his door clicked shut, I turned on Luca. "This is what your protection gets me. Strangers approaching my child?" "He didn't touch him," Luca said, his eyes black. "He gave him a toy. It's a message." "A message from who?" He didn't answer, and he was already on the phone. "Marco, the park, Rittenhouse. 2 hours ago. A man in a hat gave the boy a toy. Find him. Find him now." He hung up and looked at me. "He will not get close again." "That's not good enough." I was sobbing now. This thing, it's in my life. It's near my son. I can't live like this. I can't. "I will handle it," he said. "No." I slammed my hand on the table. "You don't get to say that anymore. You don't get to handle it. You don't get to give me pieces. I'm in this. You brought me into this. That toy proves it. You want me to trust you. You want me to stay here?" I grabbed the front of his shirt, my fear making me brave. You tell me right now, who are you, Luca?" He looked down at me, his face a mask of stone. He covered my hands with his own, his grip firm. "Last night," he said, his voice quiet, "I told you I would keep you safe. I will." "How? By being a man who values information? By owning properties? That's not who you are. I know it, tell me. Or I swear to God, I will take my son and I will walk out that door, and your men can shoot me if they want to stop me." He saw it in my eyes, the lioness. He saw that I meant it. He took a long, slow breath. He let go of my hands and stepped back. "My family," he said, "came to this country from Sicily 100 years ago. They did not build their lives in property." My heart hammered against my ribs. "My grandfather, my father, and they ran the organization, the Moretti organization, and now I do. The Mafia." The word felt clumsy, absurd, like something from a movie. "We are a family. We have business interests, and we have enemies. What I do, what I am, is keep that family and those interests secure. I am the head of that organization. Harper." He looked at me, his eyes stripped bare of all pretense. "The world you stepped into isn't clean. It's dark, and it's dangerous. But I meant what I said. On my mother's life, you and Evan, you are untouchable. I will burn the entire city to the ground before I let anyone harm you." I stared at him, the man I had fallen into bed with, the man who had bandaged my hand, the man who had given my son a room full of dinosaurs. He was a mafia boss, and he had just sworn to protect me. The word hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Mafia. I had read it in books, seen it in movies. It was a word for dark suits and hidden violence, for things that happened to other people in other cities. It was not a word that belonged in the same sentence as my son, as my life. My first coherent thought was Evan. I took a step back, my hand flying to my mouth. Luca stood perfectly still, his confession laid bare between us. He had not softened it, he had not flinched, he had stated it as a fact. "I have to get Evan," I whispered, the words thick with a new, paralyzing panic. I turned, stumbling, heading for the stairs. "Harper!" His voice was calm, but it stopped me. "Where are you going?" I'm leaving." I didn't even know what I was saying. Where would I go? Back to the apartment, to a shelter? It didn't matter. I just knew I could not be in this house, in this life, for one more second. "I'm taking my son, and I am leaving." "I can't let you do that." I spun on him, the lioness he had named, all claws and terror. "You can't let me. I am not your prisoner, Luca. You lied to me. You brought me into this world of yours, and you never gave me a choice." "I am giving you a choice now," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "But you are not walking out that door. Not after today. Not after what happened at the park. Do you understand what that toy soldier meant? It meant they know. It meant they are close. Leaving now is not an escape. It is a death sentence." "So what?" I shrieked, my voice cracking. "You want me to stay here? Locked in this house while your enemies are out there? Targeting my 6-year-old child? No, I am getting him, and I am running. You will not stop me." I took the stairs, 2 at a time, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I burst into Evan's room. He was sitting on his bed, his face pale, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. He looked up, his eyes wide with fear. "Mommy?" "It's okay, baby," I lied, my voice trembling. We're gonna go on a trip, right now. We need to pack a bag, just your favorites." "I don't want to go," he whimpered. "I'm scared." "I know. I'll keep you safe." I was pulling his little shirts from the drawers, shoving them into his school backpack. Harper. Luca was in the doorway. He had not run up the stairs. He had moved like a shadow. His face was unreadable. Please, I whispered, my fight breaking, dissolving into a desperate plea. Please, Luca, let us go. If you care about me, at all, let us go. He looked at Evan, his expression softening for just a fraction of a second. Then he looked at me. I will not let you go, he said, but I will not keep you prisoner. He pulled his phone from his pocket. I will have Vinny drive you, anywhere you want to go, a hotel, a shelter, your old apartment. You tell him where, he will take you. I stared at him. This was a concession, a trick? You'd just let me walk away with your driver? He will drive you, Luca said. He will ensure you get there. But Harper... He took a step into the room. They will find you. It might take them a day. It might take them a week. But they will find you. And Vinny, as good as he is, cannot protect you from all of them, all the time. The only place I can guarantee your safety is with me. I didn't care. The fog of war was upon me. The only imperative was flee. Get the car, I snapped. I zipped Evan's bag, grabbed his small hand, and pulled him out of the room. I didn't look at Luca. I couldn't. I marched down the stairs, pulling Evan behind me. Vinny was already at the door, his face a mask of professional stone, the black sedan idling at the curb. Mommy, where are we going? Evan cried, stumbling. We're going for a drive, I said, my voice tight. Vinny opened the back door. I bundled Evan in, climbing in beside him, my own bag forgotten. I didn't have a purse. I had nothing. Just my son. Where to, ma'am? Vinny asked, his eyes on me in the rearview mirror. I hesitated. Where? I had no money, no plan. Just drive west, out of the city. Vinny put the car in gear and pulled away from the curb. I watched the beautiful brick townhouse, my prison, my sanctuary, disappear. I did not see Luca. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Evan was quiet, his fear a palpable thing in the small, leather-scented space. I put my arm around him, pulling him close. It's going to be okay, baby, I promise. We were approaching an intersection. The light was green. We were moving through it when I saw it, a dark blur, a black SUV. Windows tinted so dark they looked like holes, running the red light at an impossible speed. Vinny! I screamed. Vinny didn't hesitate. He didn't brake. He stomped on the accelerator, yanking the wheel to the right. The sedan's engine roared. The SUV was aiming for us, trying to T-bone us. We missed the collision by inches, our car jumping the curb onto the sidewalk. The SUV didn't stop. It swerved, pulling up parallel to us. And the world exploded. It was not a bang. It was a series of wet, heavy thuds against the side of the car, a deafening, metallic thwack, thwack, thwack that vibrated through my bones. Get down, Vinny roared, his voice a weapon. Cover the boy. Cover him now. I didn't need to be told. I threw myself over Evan, my body curling into a shield, my head tucked, my eyes squeezed shut. Evan was screaming. A high, thin sound that was swallowed by the noise. More thuds. The side window next to my head, the one I had been looking out of seconds before, cracked. It didn't shatter. It spiderwebbed, 1,000 fractured lines spreading from a single point of impact. The car was armored. Vinny wrenched the wheel, and we were moving again, scraping against a brick wall, then lurching back onto the street. He was driving with a controlled, terrifying precision. They're coming around again, he yelled, more to himself than to me. He was speaking into a small microphone on his lapel. Code red, packages compromised, hostile, multiple shooters, intercepted at 19th and Spruce. I am evading, en route to sanctuary, now. I risked a glance. The black SUV was behind us, weaving through traffic. I saw the passenger window roll down. I saw the muzzle of a gun. Hold on, Vinny yelled. He turned the wheel hard left, against traffic, down a one-way street. Horns blared. People screamed. We sideswiped a parked van, the shriek of metal on metal making me sick. But it worked. The SUV tried to follow and was blocked by an oncoming bus. Vinny didn't slow down. He took a series of sharp, unpredictable turns, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. My adrenaline was so high I couldn't feel my hands. I was still draped over Evan, who was shaking, his sobs muffled against my stomach. Are they gone? I whispered, my voice unrecognizable. For now, Vinny said, his voice grim. He was bleeding from a small cut on his forehead where glass fragments from the windshield had sprayed. They weren't trying to talk, ma'am. They were trying to finish it. The reality of Luca's words hit me, a death sentence. I sat up, pulling Evan into my lap, my entire body shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Where are we going? Sanctuary, Vinny said. Mister, Moretti's estate. It's the only place we'll be safe. I looked out the window. We were leaving the city, heading north. Fast. I had tried to run, and I had run straight into the truth. My life in the townhouse, the protection, the men in the cars. That hadn't been the danger. That had been the shield. Today, for 10 minutes, I had been without it, and it had almost cost me my son. The drive took 40 minutes. We didn't speak. We drove through a set of massive, 20-foot-high wrought iron gates, set into a stone wall so tall I couldn't see over it. The gates closed behind us with a heavy, final clang. This was not a house. It was a fortress. We drove up a winding, wooded drive for another 5 minutes before a house came into view. It was a sprawling, old-world stone mansion, beautiful and intimidating. It looked like it had been pulled from the hills of Italy and dropped into the Pennsylvania woods. Luca was waiting for us on the front steps, and he was not wearing a suit jacket, and he was in his shirt sleeves, his phone pressed to his ear. When he saw the car, riddled with bullet marks, its side mirror gone, its windows a web of cracks, his face went white. He was at the door before Vinny had even put the car in park. He tore the back door open. He didn't look at me. His eyes were on Evan. He unbuckled my son, his hands moving with a desperate, gentle speed, and lifted him out of the car. He didn't ask if he was hurt. He just ran his hands over his arms, his legs, his face, checking him for injury. Mr. L, Evan whimpered, and he buried his face in Luca's neck, his small arms locking around him. You're all right, mio caro, Luca murmured, his voice thick. You're safe. I've got you. He held my son, his eyes closed for one pained second. Then he looked at me. His gaze was so intense it burned. He offered me his free hand, and I took it. I stumbled out of the car, my legs feeling like water. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice a low growl. No, I whispered. The car. It did its job. He looked over my head at Vinny. Good work. Sir, they were not amateurs, Vinny said, wiping the blood from his brow. Rico DeSantis? It has his signature, Luca said, Marat, his jaw tight. Reckless, loud. He thinks he's made a point. He looked at me, at Evan. He thinks you are my weakness. He just confirmed that I will end him. He ushered us inside. The house was vast. Marble floors, dark wood, soaring ceilings. But the mood was wrong. It was not a home. It was an armed camp. Men in dark suits, all built like Vinny, stood in every hallway. They all wore earpieces. They all watched us, their faces impassive. The air was hushed, tense. Luca handed Evan off to a woman in a gray dress. This is Sophia. She'll get him some hot chocolate and a bath. He'll be in the East Wing suite. It's the most secure. Evan, surprisingly, went with her, his fear replaced by the shock of the new, grand surroundings. Luca led me to a vast library, dark wood shelves, thousands of books, a cold fireplace. He closed the heavy doors, and the silence was absolute. You're shaking, he said. I hadn't stopped. I sank into a leather chair, my body finally giving up. He tried to kill us. He tried to kill you, Luca corrected, his voice cold. To get to me. Evan was collateral. I felt sick. Rico DeSantis. A rival. Luca poured a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He pushed it into my hand. Drink, It's brandy." I took a sip. It burned, but it stopped the shaking. "He's been a problem for a year. He's new money, all flash and violence. He wants what my family built. He thinks I'm soft because I am quiet, because I do not operate on the street." He looked at me. "He saw you. He saw me bring you into my life, in our world. That is a declaration. He thought he could remove you, leverage me." "He was right," I whispered. "I am your weakness." "You are not weak," he growled. He knelt in front of my chair, taking the glass from my trembling hand. "You are the strongest person I have ever met. You are a lioness. You are mine, and I will protect what is mine." The next few days were a blur. We were not prisoners, but we were not free. We were not allowed outside. The curtains stayed drawn. Evan was a champ. He was scared, but he was also fascinated. He called the guards, Mr. L's army men. I saw a different side of Luca. The mask of the severe, controlled boss was gone. Here, in his fortress. He was the king. He was in command, but he was also tender. I found him with Evan in the kitchen on the second day. Evan was teaching him the names of dinosaurs. "And this one," Evan said, holding up a drawing, "is a Pachycephalosaurus. He has a hard head." "For protection," Lucas said, his voice quiet. He was actually sitting on the floor with him. "Yeah," Evan beamed, "like your car, and like Mr. L." Luca looked up and saw me. A flicker of something. Embarrassment? No, just acknowledgement. He had allowed this small boy to breach his walls in a way no one else had. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence of the estate was heavier than the noise of the city. I went to Evan's room. He was asleep, his face peaceful, his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm. I wandered the dark, silent halls. I found my way to the balcony off the library. The night air was cold. I wrapped my arms around myself, looking out at the dark, wooded grounds illuminated by spotlights. I could see the silhouettes of guards, walking the perimeter. "You should not be out here." Luca's voice, and he was behind me, a shadow in the doorway. "I can't sleep," I said. "This is insane. My life. How did this become my life?" He came to stand beside me, not touching. "You missed your flight." I let out a shaky laugh. "Because of your mother." "Because of who you are," he corrected, his voice soft. "Because you are good." We stood in silence. The cold air felt good, cutting through the fog of fear. "No one has ever been here." "Harper," he said, his voice a low murmur. "No woman. I don't bring people home. My mother, my men, that's it. You are the first." I turned to look at him. His face, in the moonlight, was all harsh angles and deep shadows. But his eyes were on me, and they were full of a raw, unguarded emotion. My anger was gone. My fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but something else was there, too. A pull, a deep, magnetic, terrifying pull. I had seen him with my son. I had seen him command his men. I had seen him risk his life to protect me. "I'm terrified. Luca," I whispered. "I know." He lifted his hand, his fingers brushing my cheek. "But you are not terrified of me." He was right, I wasn't. I leaned into his touch. "No," I said, "not of you." He stepped closer, his body shielding me from the wind. He was so warm. His other hand settled on my waist, pulling me gently against him. "I am falling for you, Harper Langley," he breathed, the words torn from him. "And it is the most dangerous, reckless thing I have ever done." "Me too," I whispered, and I kissed him. This was not the desperate, frantic kiss in my bedroom. This was not the questioning, hesitant kiss in the kitchen. This was a choice. It was slow. It was deep. It was a full surrender to the paradox of this man. He was a killer. He was my protector. His mouth was soft. His hands were gentle. And his body was a shield. I kissed him with all the fear and all the acceptance and all the new fragile hope that was growing in the ruins of my old life. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine. This changes everything. It already changed, I said. He lifted me, his arms strong, and carried me from the balcony into his bedroom. It was a vast, dark room, all black and gray, with a bed so large it looked like it belonged to a king. He laid me down, his movements slow, deliberate. He did not undress me. He just lay beside me, on top of the covers, and pulled me to him, his arms a cage of steel and warmth. "Stay with me tonight," he said. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of need. I slept. Wrapped in his arms, in the heart of his fortress, I slept. The next morning, I woke up to find him watching me. He hadn't slept. "I have to give you a choice," he said, his voice rough from the long night. "What DeSantis did, that was just the start. He's been shamed. He will come back. Harder." He sat up, moving to the edge of the bed. "I can make you disappear. A real, clean break. A new identity for you. A new name for Evan. A house. A bank account. Anywhere in the world. New Zealand, France. You tell me. You would be safe. Truly safe. No one would ever find you. I would make sure of it." It was the escape hatch, the one I had been dreaming of for years. A new life. Safety. Freedom. I looked at him. His back was to me. His shoulders broad, the weight of his world on them. If I left, I would be safe. But he would be here. Alone. Still a target. "And you?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Where would you be?" "Here," he said, handling it. I sat up, my heart aching. He was offering me the very thing I thought I wanted, but it wasn't what I wanted. Not anymore. I moved behind him, my knees on the bed. I wrapped my arms around his chest from behind, pressing my cheek to his back. I felt the hard muscle flinch, surprised by the contact. "It's too late for that. Luca," I whispered. He put his hand over mine, his grip tight. "Harper, this is not a game. He will try to kill you." "I know," I said. I moved. Sliding off the bed to stand in front of him, I knelt just as he had for me in the library, and took his hands. "You said you brought me into this. You're right, but you can't. You can't just cut me out and throw me away. Not anymore." He looked at me, his eyes full of a storm. "You don't know what you are saying. You are choosing a war." "No," I said, my voice firm. The lioness finding her feet. "I am choosing you. I am staying." He was clearly deeply shocked. He stared at me, searching my face for a lie, for a crack. He found none. A few days later, his mother, Antonia, came to see me. I was in the garden, a beautiful, walled garden I was allowed to walk in, watching Evan chase a butterfly. "Harper," she said, her voice warm. She kissed my cheeks. "My lioness." "Antonia," I smiled, a real smile. "It's good to see you." "Luca tells me you are staying." Her dark eyes, so like his, were serious. "I am." She nodded slowly. "He's a good man, my son. He carries a weight that should have never been his. This life. It has hardened him. He has not. He has not been happy in many, many years. Harper, he has not let anyone in." She patted my hand. "You are doing what you did at the airport. You are seeing the man, not the stories. You are holding your ground." She looked over at Evan, who was now explaining to a guard why a T-Rex was the best. "Be careful, child," she said, her voice soft. "But also, thank you. You have brought the light back into my son's eyes." The peace, fragile as it was, lasted another week. Then it shattered. I was in the suite with Evan, reading him a story. It was late afternoon. The door burst open and Luca was there. His face was pale. "We have a problem," he said. "Marco just intercepted a credible threat. It's not a car this time. DeSantis has hired a team, ex-military. They are planning a full-scale assault on this house. Tonight." My blood turned to ice. "We're leaving," he said. "Now, Vinny is at the side door. You will take nothing. Just the boy." "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice calm. my hands already pulling Evan's shoes on. A place no one knows about, a safe house. Now, Harper, we have minutes. He half carried, half dragged us down a back staircase, through the kitchens. The house was in a state of silent, controlled panic. Men were moving, checking weapons, locking down doors. We were rushed to a secure bunker, deep under the estate. It was not a room. It was an apartment. Steel door, kitchen, beds, its own air supply. "You will stay here," Luca commanded, his hand on the door. You're not staying?" My voice broke. "I am the king," he said, his eyes black, "and my castle is under attack. I must be on the walls. Vinny will be outside this door. No one, not even me, gets in unless he knows them. Do you understand?" "Luca, don't," I whispered, grabbing his arm. He pulled me to him, his kiss hard, fast, and desperate. It tasted like fear and gunpowder. "I will come back for you," he vowed. "Keep him safe." The heavy steel door thunked shut, and I heard the bolt slide home. I was alone with my son, buried in the earth, while a war was about to begin overhead. The first few hours were silent. Evan fell asleep. I just sat, staring at the steel door, listening. Days passed, or I thought they were days. Time had no meaning. Vinny would pass food and water through a small, secure slot. We were fine. We were safe. Evan was scared. He didn't know why we were in the quiet room. "Is Mr. L playing hide and seek?" he asked. "Yes, baby," I said, my heart breaking. "It's a big, serious game, and we have to be very, very quiet." To pass the time, I read him all the books we had, and when those ran out, I started to make one up. I found a legal pad and a pen on a small desk. I started to write. Once upon a time, I wrote, there was a little stegosaurus named Evan. He and his mommy were lost in a big, scary forest. I wrote about the forest, about how they were cold and scared, and then they met a dragon, a big, dark dragon who lived in a stone castle. The dragon was scary, I wrote, my hand flying across the page. All the other animals were afraid of him. He had fire and stone-hard scales, but he didn't hurt the little stegosaurus. He brought him into his castle. He gave him a warm bed, and when the other bad dinosaurs came, the dragon stood at the gate. He protected them. I wrote for hours. I was writing our story. I was writing my fear, and I was writing my hope, and I was praying with every word that the dragon would win. We were in the earth for 3 days. 3 days of recycled air and the low, constant hum of a generator. 3 days of me reading my scribbled story about the dragon and the stegosaurus until the words blurred. Evan was a hero. He was quiet. He was brave. And he was terrified. On the 4th morning, the heavy thud of the bolts sliding back made me jump so hard I nearly screamed. The steel door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Luca stood in the opening. He was not the man who had left. He was a ghost. He was wearing the same clothes, his dark shirt torn at the shoulder, stained with something that looked like soot. His face was pale, covered in grime, and there was a 4-day-old shadow of a beard on his jaw. His eyes were ancient, filled with a bottomless, soul-crushing exhaustion. "It's over," he said, his voice a raw croak. I rushed to him, my hand flying to his face. His skin was cold. "You're hurt." "I'm not," he said, pulling me into an embrace so tight it stole my breath. He buried his face in my hair. "It's done. He's gone." "Rico?" I whispered, my voice muffled against his shoulder. "His men are, most of them, the assault. No, it failed. We were ready." He let me go, his hands staying on my arms as if to anchor himself. "DeSantis. He ran. He's in the wind, but he's broken. He has no crew, no money." He looked past me at Evan, who was hiding behind my legs. A small, rare smile touched Luca's lips. "Hey, buddy, the game's over. We won." He led us out of the bunker, up the stairs, and into the house. It was a war zone. The beautiful marble floor of the foyer was cracked, shattered in one place by gunfire. The windows were boarded up. The scent of smoke and cordite hung in the air. My beautiful prison, my fortress, had been violated. "They will fix it," Lucas said, seeing my face. "It's just stone." He moved us to a different wing of the house, one that was untouched. He ordered food, then disappeared for hours. I bathed Evan. I bathed myself. I scrubbed the smell of concrete and fear off our skin. That night, Luca told me his new plan. He's wounded, but he's not dead. A wounded animal is the most dangerous. I cannot have this. I cannot have you and Evan living in a bunker. This has to end, permanently. "What are you going to do?" I asked, my blood cold. "I'm going to offer him peace," Lucas said, his eyes flat. "I've sent word through a mutual associate, a meeting, neutral ground. He and we settle this. He takes what's left of his life and disappears, or I take it from him." You can't," I breathed. "It's a trap. He'll kill you." "Of course it's a trap," Lucas said, his voice void of emotion. "It's his trap, and it's my trap. The only question is, whose is better?" He was going to war, but this time, he was wearing a suit. He spent the next 2 days in his library, which had been secured, taking quiet, tense phone calls. I was left alone. I was a ghost in this fortress, watching my son play with toys, while the man I was something with was planning a murder, or walking into his own. The day of the meeting, I was pacing the library, and he was getting dressed. Upstairs, I was trying to read, to distract myself. My hand ran along a shelf of old, leather-bound books. One of them, a copy of The Prince, moved under my touch. It wasn't a book. It was a false front. Behind it was a small, black digital safe. I stared at it. It was none of my business. I should have turned, walked away, and forgotten I ever saw it. But I was the woman who had missed her flight. I was the woman who had to know. His birthday. I tried the date of his birthday. Antonia had mentioned it. Invalid code. I tried Evan's birthday. Invalid code. My birthday. I didn't even know if he knew it. I punched in the 6 digits. The safe clicked open. I felt sick. My heart hammered. Inside was not money. It was a single, slim, black leather-bound folder. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking. I opened it. It wasn't one report. It was maybe 20. Each one a single page, a name at the top, a grainy, black and white surveillance photo stapled to the corner, and a date at the bottom, handwritten in black ink. Under the date, a single, finalized word, concluded. These were not business rivals. These were obituaries. This was a list of men. Men who had crossed the Moretti organization, men who had, I assumed, disappeared. This was the cold, hard, administrative work of an executioner. This was the handling it he was so fond of. I felt the room spin. I sank into his leather chair, the folder open in my lap. This was the man I had slept with. This was the man who had been so gentle with my son. He was a killer, not in self-defense, not in a war, but as a matter of business. I heard his footsteps in the hall. I didn't have time to put it back. I just closed the folder. He opened the door. He was dressed in a dark suit, a crisp white shirt and a black tie. He looked like he was going to a funeral. He stopped when he saw my face. He looked at the folder in my lap. He didn't get angry. He didn't yell. His face just closed. The warmth. The man I had seen with Evan, the vulnerable lover, and he was gone. The king was back. "You had no right," he said, his voice flat. "Who was Anthony Pirelli?" I whispered, my voice trembling, reading the name on the top page. What did he do? Luca's jaw tightened. He was a traitor. He sold information to DeSantis, information that got 2 of my men killed. "So you concluded him?" "I did," he said, no remorse, no hesitation. "That is my world. Harper, that is the price of loyalty, and that is the price of betrayal. You wanted to know who I am. That is who I am." How can you live with that?" I was crying, silent, hot tears. How can you be this thing, and then hold my son? How can you kiss me?" He walked to the desk, his movements heavy. He looked exhausted again. "Do you think I enjoy it?" he said, his voice a low growl. "Do you think I... like this? This is the legacy I was given. This is the sickness. I do it so that my men can feed their families. I do it so that my mother can sleep in her own bed. I do it." He turned to me, his eyes blazing. "So that the entire rotten, violent world doesn't come pouring in. I am the wall, Harper, and the wall has to be made of stone, and sometimes it has to be paid for in blood." He took the folder from my lap and put it back in the safe. He locked it. "I have to go," he said. I stood, wiping my face. "Luca, don't become one of those pages. Don't, please." He paused at the door. He looked at me, his gaze so heavy I felt it like a physical weight. "I will come back to you," he said. And he was gone. The waiting was the worst part. It was worse than the bunker. In the bunker, I had been with Evan. Now, Evan was with Sophia, playing. I was alone, in this vast, silent fortress, with the knowledge of what was in that safe. What kind of future could we have? Could I love that? Could I raise my son next to that, a man who concluded people? I paced the library for 6 hours. Every time I heard a car, my heart stopped. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. It was almost midnight when I heard the commotion. Men's voices, hushed but urgent. The front door. I ran. I flew down the hall. Vinny and another guard were helping Luca inside. He was on his feet, but he was leaning heavily on them. His suit jacket was gone. His white shirt was soaked in blood. "Oh, God," I breathed. "He's all right, ma'am," Vinny said, his voice strained. "He's just lost some blood." "Take him to my room," I commanded. The lioness, the lady of the house. I didn't know what I was, but I was in charge. "Bring the large medical kit from the kitchen. Now." They got him to his bedroom, eased him down onto the edge of the massive bed. He was pale, his skin clammy with sweat. "It's just a scratch," he grunted, his teeth clenched. "Get this shirt off," I said. I helped him, my hands trembling, but my mind suddenly, blessedly clear. The files, the past. It didn't matter. He was here. He was bleeding. He had a long, deep, vicious slice across his ribs. It wasn't a bullet. It was a knife. "Rico?" I whispered, as I grabbed the antiseptic from the kit Vinny brought. He got lucky," Luca hissed. As I pressed a gauze pad to the wound, he winced, a sharp intake of breath. "But he won't be getting lucky again. It's concluded." The finality of that word, he had killed him, face to face, with a knife. I didn't feel horror. I didn't feel relief. I just felt a cold, profound numbness. I had to fix this. "This needs stitches," I said, my voice shaking. "I know," he breathed. "Kit, bottom drawer." I found a sterile suture kit. I don't know how." "Yes, you do," he said, his eyes finding mine. He was in pain, but he was present. He was with me. "It's just sewing. Clean it, then just be steady." My hands, which had trembled holding that file, were now rock solid. I cleaned the wound, my stomach rolling at the raw, parted flesh. I threaded the needle, and I stitched him up. I put in 12 clumsy, tight stitches, my own breathing matching his, which was ragged with pain. When I was done, I taped a large, sterile bandage over it. My hands were covered in his blood. "Go," he whispered. "Get cleaned up." "I'm not leaving you," I said. I cleaned my hands in his bathroom. When I came back, he had managed to swing his legs onto the bed, but he was shivering. The shock was setting in. I pulled back the heavy comforter and I got in. I didn't take off my clothes. I just got in beside him, on top of the covers, and wrapped my body around his, trying to give him my warmth. He was cold as ice. "It's done," he whispered, his voice trembling against my hair. It's really done. He's gone." "I know," I said. "Sleep, Luca, it's over." We lay like that for a long time. I thought he was asleep. "I want it," he said, his voice a low, rough murmur in the dark. "Want what?" "A future. With you. With Evan. I saw it. When he had me. That knife. All I could see was you. And the boy." He turned, his body aching, to face me. "I cannot promise you safety, Harper. I am who I am. My name. It will always be a target, but I swear on my father's grave, I will burn it all down for you. I will burn the whole world to the ground to keep you and that boy safe." I looked at him. This killer, this dragon, this broken, powerful man who was willing to burn the world for me. I kissed him, my lips brushing his, which were dry and cold. "I know," I whispered. He pulled me closer. His arm, the one that wasn't wounded, a band of steel around me. He cradled me protectively, as if I were the one who had been wounded, and in his arms, in the bed of a man who had just taken a life. I felt, for the first time, completely and utterly safe. A week later, Evan got sick. It was a normal thing, a bad cough, a fever that spiked, fast. He woke up at 2 a.m, delirious, his small body burning up. I panicked, my old life panic. I grabbed the phone to call 911. Luca, who'd been sleeping in my bed every night since the fight, his wound healing, his presence a constant, silent comfort, put his hand over mine. "We don't call them," he said, his voice calm. "He's burning up. Luca, he needs a hospital." "He will have one." He was already on his own phone. He spoke 2 words in Italian. He hung up. "A car will be here in 3 minutes. A doctor will be waiting for us." We rushed Evan, wrapped in a blanket, to a discreet black-on-black building in a quiet neighborhood. It was not a hospital. It was a private clinic. The lights were on. A man in scrubs, Dr. Alessi, his mother's doctor, was waiting. They took Evan. They stabilized him. It was a bad case of pneumonia. They said they put him on an IV. They gave him a private room that looked like a hotel. I sat by the bed, holding my son's small, limp hand, and it hit me. I was no longer Harper Langley, the waitress from Pennsylvania. I was a different person. My life was no longer about eviction notices and screaming alarms. My life was about private doctors and armored cars and men who killed. I had built a new life in the shadow of this man, and I hadn't even realized it. The final piece of my old life, the last ghost, found me 2 days after Evan came home, healthy and bouncing. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Harper, is that you?" The voice, greasy, weak, the voice that haunted my nightmares. "Mark." How did you get this number?" "It wasn't easy, baby, I'll tell you that," he wheezed, a false, oily charm. You've done well for yourself. Real well. I seen you. The big house, the fancy cars." "What do you want, Mark?" I said, my voice cold. I was standing in Luca's library. I felt nothing, just tired. "What do I want?" He laughed, a high, reedy sound. "I want a little help, for old time's sake. $100,000. Harper, that's it. A little relocation fee. And I'll just go away. For good." "And if I say no?" "If you say no," his voice turned ugly, the voice I remembered. "If you say no, I go to the cops. I go to the papers. I tell them everything. I tell them who you're shacked up with. I tell them you've got my son, Evan, and my son. Living with a gangster. You think a judge is going to like that? I'll have him back. Harper, I swear to God, I'll take him from you." My blood turned to ice. This was the one threat, the one thing that could... I hung up. I turned. Luca was standing in the doorway. He had heard every word. His face was... I have no words for it. It was not the black rage I had seen before. It was a cold white, absolute absence of light. He did not speak. He just turned and walked away. "Luca!" I ran after him. "What are you going to do? Don't conclude him, please. He's Evan's father." He stopped, his back to me. "He threatened you," he said, his voice a vibration. He threatened Evan." "I know," I said, my voice breaking, "but not like this, not with violence. Please, Luca, if you're the man I think you are, if you're the man I'm find another way." He was silent for a long, terrible moment. "There is always," he said, "another way." The next day, Mark was arrested. It was clean. So clean. He was pulled over for a broken taillight. The police found 2 ounces of cocaine under his seat. They found the old, outstanding warrants for parole violations, for the thousands in back child support he owed me. A lawyer, a shark in a $2,000 suit, appeared at his arraignment. He advised Mark. He explained that his options were, limited. He could fight this, and he would get 20 years. Or he could make a deal. The drug charges would be lessened. In return, he would sign away, permanently and forever, all parental rights to Evan. He would accept a restraining order so absolute he couldn't come within 500 miles of us. He signed. He was gone, surgically and legally removed from my life. Luca came to me that night. I was in the library, the children's book I'd written in the bunker, now typed and bound, in my lap. "It's done," he said. "He's gone." I looked at him, the man who could command armies, and the man who could command the law. You planted the drugs." "I made a problem disappear," he said, "the way the world understands, with paper, not with blood, as you asked." He looked tired and raw. "This is it, Harper, this is the life. It is ugly. It is power. It is all I know, but it's yours, if you want it." He didn't move. He didn't kneel. There was no ring. There were no flowers. There was just him, standing in the shadows of his fortress, his hands empty, his eyes asking a question that terrified him. "Will you build this with me?" he asked, his voice raw, "knowing what I am, knowing what it takes?" I looked at this man, my dragon, my killer, my savior, the man who had stitched his own wounds and the man who had healed mine. I thought of my story. "Yes," I whispered. He closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging in a relief so profound it almost buckled him. He came to me, his hands cupping my face. "Yes?" "Yes," I said, my voice stronger. I put my hands over his. "But I need something. I need you to walk away from this." I gestured to the house, the files, the life, the organization, the concluding. I cannot be your wife, and I will not raise our son in this. I need you, Luca, the man, not the boss." He stared at me, his face unreadable. I was asking for his kingdom, his entire identity. He was quiet for a long, long time, and he looked at my face, then at the hallway, toward Evan's room. He nodded once. "I will," he said, his voice hoarse. "I will dismantle it. I'll hand it to my cousin. He's wanted it for years. I will walk away." He kissed me, a deep, bruising kiss that tasted like a new, terrifying future. It was a promise. He pulled back, his eyes still holding mine. "But there's one last thing I have to do." The one last thing was a cloud that hung over us for 3 days. I had said yes. I had agreed to build a life with him, and in return, he had agreed to dismantle but a kingdom. I learned, especially one built on shadow and blood, cannot simply be abandoned. It must be settled. Rico DeSantis was dead, concluded by Luca's own hand, but his organization, his crew, his lieutenants, they were a nest of hornets, angry, scattered, and desperate for revenge. Luca's cousin, Benito, a man I had never met, was willing to take over the Moretti Empire, but he would not take it while it was at war. Luca's one last thing was not a retreat. It was a final, surgical, cleansing fire. He didn't sleep. He spent those 3 days in the library, a general in his fortress, moving pieces on a board I could not see. He was on the phone, his voice low, his words a mix of clipped English and sharp, guttural Italian. He was talking to Vinny, to Marco, and to men inside the police. "It is not a war, Harper," he told me late one night when I brought him a cup of coffee he hadn't asked for. He looked pale, the wound in his side, though healing was clearly paining him. "A war is messy. This is an arrangement." He was luring them in, all of them, the remnants of Rico's crew. He was feeding them a story, through a double agent, that he was weak, that he was wounded, and that he was moving a large, final payment of his own money out of a bonded warehouse by the docks. He was offering them a prize so big they could not resist. "They will come," he said, his eyes flat and cold. "They will all come. They will think they are walking into a vault, and they will find a correction." He was coordinating it with a unit of law enforcement that, for years, had been on his family's payroll. They would not be there to arrest. They would be there to contain. It was a setup, designed to look like a rival crew being ambushed by a SWAT team. It was clean. It was final. It was concluding. The night he left, the air in the house was so thick I could barely breathe. He did not wear a suit. He was dressed in black. Dark, functional pants, a black shirt, over it, a heavy Kevlar vest that made my stomach turn. He was not a boss tonight. He was a soldier. "You don't have to go," I whispered, my hand on his arm. "Send your men, send Vinny, please." He put his hand over mine, his grip firm. "They are not coming for my men. They are coming for me. They believe I am weak. I must be there to correct that assumption." He looked at me, his eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "This is the last time, Harper. I am walking away, but I will not walk away a coward. I will not leave a single ghost behind me. Not for them, and not for you." He kissed me. It was not a soft, tender kiss. It was hard and deep and full of a desperate, terrifying finality. It tasted of goodbye. "I will come back to you," he vowed, his forehead resting against mine. "You'd better," I whispered, my voice breaking. He went to Evan's room. He stood in the doorway for a full minute, just watching our son sleep, the little boy's chest rising and falling, his stegosaurus tucked under his arm. Then Luca turned, gave me one last unreadable look, and was gone. The front door closed with a quiet, heavy thunk, and the waiting began. It was the worst night of my life. It was worse than the bunker, worse than the drive-by shooting. That had been terror. This was a choice. This was the price of our future. I was sitting in a fortress, safe, while the man I loved was out there, in the dark, walking into a trap of his own making. I couldn't sit still. I paced the vast, silent house. The guards were still there, still at their posts, but the king was gone. The house felt empty, cold. Evan woke up around 10, his internal radar sensing my panic. He came padding down the hall, his dinosaur dragging. "Mommy, where's Mr. L?" My throat closed. He's at work, baby. A big, important job. Is he coming back?" "Yes," I said, the word a prayer. "He is." I couldn't let Evan sleep alone. I couldn't be alone. I brought him down to the kitchen, the one place that felt like ours. I sat in one of the heavy oak chairs, and I pulled him into my lap. I wrapped a blanket around us both. Midnight. The house was silent. I stared at the dark, cold stove, remembering the night I had burned my hand, the night he had kissed me. 1 a.m, I must have dozed, my cheek resting on Evan's hair. I woke with a jolt, my heart pounding. Silence. Nothing. 2 a.m, I started to shake. The quiet was too loud. It meant something had gone wrong. He should be back by now. He had said, what had he said? He had just said he would come back. He had not said when. 3 in the morning, the dark, desperate hour. This was when the ghosts came. I thought about the files in his safe. Concluded, was he now a file in someone else's safe? Was he concluded? I began to cry, silent, hot tears that I tried to hide, but they dripped onto Evan's hair. I was a fool. I had asked him to walk away, and this was the price. Freedom was not free. It was paid for by his life. I thought about my old life, the diner, the gray cubicle, the eviction notices. I had been treading water. Now, I was drowning. 4 in the morning. The sky outside was not black anymore. It was a sick, gray-blue dawn. The night was over. He was not coming back. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He was gone. He was dead. He had died in some dark warehouse, trying to buy me a life he would never get to share. I was a widow. I was a 32-year-old widow to a man I had never even married. I held my son, and I sobbed, my body racking with a grief so profound, so deep. It was a physical tearing. I had lost him. The sound of a car on the gravel, slow, heavy, like a wounded animal crawling home, made my head snap up. I slid Evan off my lap. "Stay here," I whispered. I ran, my bare feet slapping on the cold marble of the foyer. I fumbled with the locks, my hands shaking. I tore the heavy door open. He was there. He was alive. He was leaning against the side of the car, Vinny holding him up. He was not a king. He was a wreck. His face was almost unrecognizable. It was bruised, one eye swollen shut, a long, deep gash bleeding from his hairline into his eyebrow. His black clothes were torn, and he was covered in... God, he was covered in blood. Some was his, some was not. He was holding his side, where the knife wound had been. It was open again, bleeding sluggishly through his shirt. He looked at me, through his one good eye, and he smiled, a ghost of a smile, a terrible, beautiful, triumphant smile. The house is clean," he whispered. And he pitched forward, collapsing into my arms. We got him to the kitchen. I didn't call for Sophia. I didn't call for anyone. Vinny helped me get him into a chair. Vinny, too, was wounded, his hand wrapped in a bloody rag. "What happened?" I whispered, my hands trembling as I ripped open a medical kit. This was becoming a pattern. Me, patching up my dragon. It was a trap, ma'am," Vinny said, his voice strained. "Inside our trap, they had more men than we thought. They were waiting. The police. It went bad. It wasn't a sweep, it was a war." I looked at Luca. His eyes were closed. He was breathing, but it was shallow. "Luca," I said, my voice sharp, "stay with me." I pressed a clean, antiseptic-soaked cloth to the gash on his head. He hissed, his eyes flying open. "It's done," he breathed, his hand finding mine, his grip weak. "But there, it's done. Benito. He's on his way. The organization. It's his." "And us?" I whispered, my tears falling onto his bloody hand. "What about us?" "Benito takes the house," he said, his voice a painful rasp. "He takes all of it. The businesses, the name." "The files? Luca," I said, my voice urgent. "The safe." "Vinny," Luca grunted. Vinny, understanding, pulled a small metal object from his pocket. It was a USB drive, just like the one I had seen before, but this one was scorched, half melted. The safe house," Vinny said. "It's gone. An electrical fire. All the records, all the hard copies, everything, it's ash." He had done it. He hadn't just walked away. He had burned his entire history, his father's legacy. He had destroyed the Moretti organization as it had existed. He was handing his cousin a clean, new, legitimate business. He had destroyed the wall. The relief, the sheer, crushing weight of it was too much. The night of waiting, the terror, the sight of him. It all broke me. I put my head down on the kitchen table, next to his arm, and I broke down. I wept. Not quiet, respectful tears, but the raw, ugly, gasping sobs of a woman who had been to hell and back. I felt his hand, weak and sticky, on my hair. He pulled me close, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. He was trembling. I was trembling. We just held on. Two broken, exhausted survivors, in the middle of a cold marble kitchen, surrounded by blood and the smell of antiseptic, the gray morning light filtering in. "Are you staying now?" The small voice cut through the silence. We both looked. Evan was standing in the doorway, his feet bare, his stegosaurus clutched tight to his chest. His eyes were wide, taking in the blood, the bandages, my tears. He looked at me, then at Luca. Luca, wincing, straightened in the chair. He looked at me, his one good eye full of a love so fierce it took my breath away. He looked back at our son. A real smile, the first I'd ever seen that reached his eyes, split his bruised, bloody face. He held out his good arm. "Always," he whispered. He lifted Evan, grunting with the pain, and settled him on his lap, right in the middle of the storm. Always. We live in upstate New York. Our name is Martin, Adam and Harper Martin. We live in a house, not a fortress. It's white, with a blue door. There is a lake out back, and a small wooden dock. The loudest sound is the wind in the pine trees. I am Harper Martin. I am a writer. I just got the advance copy of my first published book. It's a children's book called The Dragon and the Stegosaurus. It's dedicated to A.M. Evan is 7. He's tan and loud and obsessed with fishing. He's no longer the pale, quiet boy who lived in a gray apartment. He is free. Adam, my husband, is a consultant. He's quiet. He's still. He still has the eyes of a king. But the stone is gone. The weight has been lifted. He spends his days teaching our son how to tie a fishing knot, how to read the water. He wears flannel shirts and old jeans. I have not seen him in a suit since the day we left Pennsylvania. I am standing on the porch, a cup of coffee in my hand, watching them. It's autumn. The trees are a blaze of gold and red. Evan casts his line, and it's a perfect, beautiful arc. He cheers. Adam looks up at me, and his smile is easy. It is the smile of a man who is, for the first time in his life, at peace. I put my hand on my belly. It is round, full. We are expecting a girl in the spring. Adam leaves the dock and walks up the grassy hill to me, and he doesn't speak. He just comes up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his hands joining mine on the swell of our new life. He kisses my shoulder, his lips warm. We stand there, together, watching our son. The air is cold, the sun is warm. It is perfect. Adam leans his cheek against my hair, his gaze on Evan, on the golden trees, on the life he never thought he would have. He whispers, so low I almost don't hear it, the words meant only for himself, a quiet, final prayer of thanks. All of this, because she missed one flight. Thank you so much for listening to our story. It has been a long and wild journey. We would absolutely love to know where in the world you are listening from. Please drop a comment and say hello. If you enjoyed this story and you want to hear more tales of love, danger, and redemption, please be sure to subscribe to Mafia Romance Stories. What did you think of Harper and Luca's journey? Did you ever think they would find their peace? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments. We cannot wait to read them.